April 1st, and this is T. Skillet, and this is the afternoon news program on the Panikin Rehab um, podcast. So I do an afternoon news, just a news brief every afternoon for Panikin Rehab, and so I'm T. Skillet. Okay, today's news. Iran war is heating up. Well, our military action is heating up. Trump says U.S. forces could wrap up operations in Iran within 2 to 3 weeks. Of course, Iran doesn't agree with that, but that's okay. Trump is to address the nation tonight at 9 p.m., and he's expected mostly to speak about the Iran military action over there. Israel strikes Beirut in Lebanon, killing 7, including Hezbollah commander. Uh, Lebanon has been taking heavy damages with Israeli airstrikes. Now, here's some fun news from Florida. We've got a rocket going to the moon. We haven't had a rocket going to the moon in 50 years. So Artemis 2, which is a NASA program, Artemis, and it is working with SpaceX in a partnership because SpaceX is going to be organizing vehicles to land on the moon in preparation for a Mars launch. So they have to go to the moon first, store up supplies, and then from those supplies, create another launch going to Mars. And just to give you an example, when they get ready to launch from Cape Canaveral, from Kennedy Space Center over in Titusville area of the East Coast, there's about 100,000 people that have to put this all together. So you have engineers that put together all these, all the structure, the scaffolding, the metal rocket launcher, the water tower that pumps in water to the base of the rocket, so the vibration from the engine doesn't shake everything apart over there. Yeah, there's going to be some shaking over on the East Coast today. The launch is pretty much on the timer at 6 p.m., liftoff at 6:24. So if you get ready to start watching TV or go outside to watch the launch live at 6 p.m., liftoff is scheduled for 6:24 p.m. This is NASA's first crew trip beyond low Earth orbit since Apollo. So now, if you ever get to Florida and take your family over to Kennedy Space Center, they have an Apollo rocket and capsule in a hangar over there. In the bus tour, you can go take a tour of what the actual Apollo rocket looks like. Also, you can tour the space shuttle. So they have a real space shuttle that you walk through and can see what the actual size and what it looked like and the features of it inside of a space shuttle. And that's at Kennedy Space Center. This is a 10-day lunar flyby with no landing, just testing Orn and the SLS. The rocket, Block 1, is the most powerful ever flown. The rocket is going to be racing at 24,500 miles per hour. The Orion space capsule is going 10 days from now on April, let's see, it plunges back on April 10th. When it comes into reentry, the capsule is going to be going 25,000 miles an hour. So you can imagine. This is the crew. They're already in the capsule. This is your command. The commander is the one in the center top. He's a fighter pilot. The rest are scientists and technicians that are flying. These are NASA astronauts, and they've been training their whole lives for this. So pretty cool. The rocket travels out to the launch pad on a vehicle that carries the complete launching pad out to the launch. So this contraption is one of the largest ever built. It's a giant almost like a giant tank. And it moves, I don't know, very slow, like a half a mile, if that, an hour, and carries these heavy loads all the way out. Now, the rocket's empty. Everything is empty in this rocket. It gets filled with fuel when it's stationary and at the launch pad. So they carry that out on this huge contraption. Now, let me give you a heads up on the actual mission. Okay, so the mission is going to be approximately 10 days with a Pacific Ocean landing back on will be future April 10th, 2026. All right, so Artemis NASA's mission, day zero, that's today. The core will burn for 8 minutes, dropping the boosters, okay? And that will reach a speed of 24,000 miles an hour. They're going to jettison some junk, and then the core stage, upper stage, will burn to get the rocket into an upper orbit on day 1 and 2. On day 2, this rocket is going to slingshot free, okay, by the Orion engines. Okay, so you have the takeoff, as you can see in the picture 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then 5, they're going to start jettisoning off some of the junk. And then 6, you see that the booster for the capsule is still pushing it around Earth. 7, it separates. And then 8, it's just the Orion capsule. And that's going to go around Earth again. 9, 10, okay. As you can see, it slingshots from the Earth. It's speeding at 25,000 miles an hour, 25,000 miles an hour. Now it's going to go around the moon. It's not going to go into a low orbit or go around the moon as an orbit. It's strictly using the moon's gravity pull for propellant speed, so it can shoot off from that gravitational pull from the moon and then go back to Earth. Okay, so we have all these young people that want to know, how do you get to the moon from the Earth with limited fuel? Like, it's impossible. It's all about speed. So they have these huge rockets that push this payload as fast as it can using the Earth gravitational pull to slingshot it off the Earth and then toward the moon. Now, we don't have enough power. There's not enough speed that can happen to send us all the way to Mars, but it can get us to the moon. So that's why they're going to be using the moon for supplies, and then they're going to have another launch from the moon to Mars. Now, when they fly by the moon, they're going to be 7,600 kilometers out. So I think if you divide 2.2 or something like that, you can kind of get your kilometers, or it's like 5,000 kilometers out. So there's no orbit, just gravity assist. The return leg. So the return leg would be 11 and 12 and 13 back to Earth. That's going to take 4 days. So 4 days from when they go around the moon, then slingshot back to Earth. So this graphic, you can see 12 and 13. That is going to be 4 days. And then on the final day, which is April 10th, they shoot in the retro rockets, slowing the capsule down and then entering the atmosphere. Now, this is what's different. This particular launch, they're going to be, I wrote some notes down on this. They're going to be returning and going into the Earth's atmosphere at 24,000 miles an hour. Not satellites, but meteorites don't even go that fast. And how we can see meteorites, or the lights in the sky, meteorites coming up back into Earth atmosphere. This thing's going to be going like 4 times faster, 5 times faster than meteorites coming back into Earth. So it's going to be pretty impressive, and we wish them luck. Um, the Supreme Court, the yeah, re-entry into back to Earth will be at 25,000 miles an hour, 25,000 miles an hour, if you can imagine. So, pretty nervous about that. Today, the Supreme Court argued birthright citizenship. Trump's executive order challenging it head to arguments today in the Supreme Court. So basically, um, a judge took down his order that you can no longer have birthrights. You can't be pregnant, not living in the United States, come to the United States on a travel visa, like a tour, and then have a baby, and then that baby is a U.S. citizen. But that's what people have been doing. In fact, we had we've got over 200,000 Chinese that are on this dual citizenship, where the mothers have had the baby in the United States while traveling here right before birth. So that's insane. But it was just I was listening. I had to do some I was doing some landscaping work, and out in the back around my pool, and I was listening to the argument, and it's pretty dry. Listening to attorneys is pretty dry. And the person arguing for Trump has a throat problem, kind of. So he kind of talks like Secretary Kennedy. So it kind of almost hurts to listen to him, but he's very smart. And the reason that to argue before the Supreme Court is these judges are asking questions. Well, uh, Trump, um, Trump was at the Supreme Court hearing. So these Supreme Court justices, they were asking a lot of questions. So they normally don't ask that many questions, but on both attorneys, for and against birthright citizenship, today before the Supreme Court, both uh, all the justices were asking questions. And Jackson, the Supreme Court Justice Jackson, most of her questions were pertaining to illegal aliens. Like, hey, you have a baby, you're an illegal alien, you're not here, legally. So is your child an American citizen? And if you have residence, if the illegal alien has a residence, which we all know they provided that, they provided hotel rooms for these illegal aliens in sanctuary cities. That's all for a reason. The reason is they want to have residency. They want them to have an address that they can say, "Hey, I'm a citizen now. I have an address." Okay, and that was some of Jackson's arguments today, or questions about this whole case. But they were arguing a lot about the Indians, and this ruling back from the 1800s, and then this judge gave a speech in the 1900s about it, but it was just a speech. It wasn't any law or rule or anything like that. So they were arguing about that a lot. But it was just funny. The only thing I kind of got out of it was that they didn't really talk about the issue. Is we have tour companies that they call them U.S. citizenship pregnancy tours, from China, from Europe, from anywhere, and they come to the United States just to have a baby. I mean, they're pregnant, traveling, and I don't even think you're supposed to do that. I know my wife. I have 2 kids. I know my wife didn't travel a lot right before birth. I mean, you want to be home based and ready for the doctor and the hospital and everything. So, but no, what these mothers do is they travel to the United States days before birth, and they give birth in the United States. So that really wasn't discussed at all today. It's almost like that's what you're arguing about, but they never brought it up. It's like that's what's so. If they would just have a little common sense, I think a lot of these complicated problems could be solved easily. because it just doesn't make any sense that a country would give somebody citizenship because their mother flew over in a jet 5 days before they gave birth or 3 days before they gave birth. Some of these people give birth on the plane before they even get to the United States. So it becomes one big legal argument. But there's a reason why these illegal aliens that have come across the border, they get sheets of paper that tell them what NGO to contact, who's going to give them food, give them housing, give them transportation, and all of a sudden they're flying to all these swing states, right? And they're put into hotels, and Americans, we can't even go to the hotel with their security at the door saying, what are you doing here? And they're like, well, I want to see this La Quinta. And they're like, yeah, you can't come in. The La Quinta is completely booked, and it's held by this NGO. And have a nice day. You're not allowed to even inside the building. And this is our own country. So anyway, it's all because they want to have domicile. And that word was brought up a lot in the arguments of domicile. What is domicile? I mean, I'm sitting here. This is my home. This is my domicile. Okay. But I've lived here for 35 years. I own the home. I own the property. It's my domicile. But if you're here on a trip, your hotel isn't your domicile. It's just a temporary place that you're staying until you return home. But with the huge influx during Biden's administration, that all became legal questions. And I believe that the NGOs were setting up the housing because they wanted to give the illegal aliens domicile. So this is a pretty important Supreme Court decision. There was a lot of silliness on it, a lot of questions, but I think the questions were asked today from both attorneys representing the for and against birthright citizenship, only because President Trump was there in the crowd, which was, I think, a first for any president to go listen to the arguments in person. Usually you can just listen to them on the phone or online like I did. I listened to them online and while I was working out in the yard. I'm sure my neighbors were wondering, what the heck is he listening to over there? A couple of attorneys arguing a case before the Supreme Court, but I enjoy that. All right, so that's about it. We're going to wrap this up. We've got the president speaking tonight at 9. Don't forget, there's a rocket that's going to be launched in about, let's see, it's 4:30, 5:30, 6:30. So in about 2 hours. So get your cold beverage and go outside and watch the liftoff. I'm sure you're going to be able to see this rocket probably in North Carolina all the way down through south to Miami. I've seen rockets take off while in Miami. So kind of, look north if you're in south of Titusville. Look northeast, see if you see a rocket go up, and if you're on the East Coast, look southeast and see if you see a rocket go up about 6:24 tonight. The interesting part about this is they're testing Orin with the gravitational pull for slingshotting and course correction. They're also testing the speed of these rockets because they're going to go fast. They're the fastest, most powerful engines ever created to push the speed to get the weight that they're going to carry to the moon. Okay, so you have to have the speed, the slingshotting, and then over to the moon, course correction, and then get into orbit, and then land. So that's where SpaceX comes in. So this is the rocket itself is a NASA operation. The astronauts are NASA, but they are in a SpaceX capsule, and they're in a SpaceX will be landing vehicles on the moon. So that's going to be the SpaceX connection with NASA. So it is a teamwork together. All right, this T Skillet. Just so you know, we have Panikin's Rehab every morning at 5 a.m. Comes and goes pretty quick. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. to watch it, but you can watch it later. We have fun. James Empty Pockets podcast is on there. We talk about today's events and we kind of make fun of it. I'm not too political. We also have Tyler with Panikin, and he's our Panikin ambassador for Panikin Rehab. That's at 5 a.m. to 6. Also, we're part of the Killer Carl radio network, and Killer Carl has a nightly show tonight at 8 p.m. on Getter. And then on the weekends, Killer Carl Radio does a radio show at 8 a.m. So get up and listen to John Frederick's Radio. It's online, John Frederick's Radio. Get the app and listen to Killer Carl Radio on Saturdays at 8 a.m. So this is T Skillet. Have a nice rest of the afternoon. Don't forget, there's a rocket launch. We're going back